All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope y'all are enjoying your second rare snow day in a row. At this point, I don't even think we can call them snow days anymore. These are just cold days, and to be fair, I wouldn't want to walk out there any. I wouldn't want to walk out there, but I think that's the reason why UK is canceled, especially today. Not so much yesterday, but especially today. It's going to get colder as we go on through the week. I don't know how long UK decides to keep us closed, but that's their call, not mine. So I'm just kind of taking it as we go. Um, so today is going to be an online lecture. I'm going to do this virtually, and so you guys can just watch it and refer to it anytime you want. What I want y'all to, we're going to finish chapter two, which we began going over last Thursday. And once we're done with that, we'll transition over to chapter three and trying to get chapter three done in about, an hour and 15, like we know have for normal class time. So that'd be the plan today. And then when we meet, hopefully if we meet on Thursday, we can start with chapter four. So that's the plan. At the end of this lecture, I'll be introducing a participation activity. I'll be also creating a Google form that I'll be sending out into an announcement for all of y'all, and I will want you to respond to it, and we'll talk about it when we get back on Thursday. Cool. All right. So chapter two, we kind of started with the whole social cognition, right? What is social cognition? What is automatic? What is controlled? We talked about the Bobo doll experiment and some of the things that come to our mind immediately without much rhyme or reason. That will be your automatic, right? We rely on things that were taught to us. We relied on things that we've learned. We've relied on things that stereotypes, for example. Those were the things that come into play with your automatic social cognition, right? It's the quick and it's immediate. Okay, it doesn't take much effort, but chances are we're probably going to be wrong when we refer to that. Now, your controlled is when we're going to be sitting down and thinking about what our judgments, what our thoughts about this person are going to do to them, right? And some of those things can lead into self-fulfilling prophecies and then your looking glass self, right? Those kind of build upon one another, okay? Those were some of the things we talked about. We also talked about memories here, and so I want to transition over to judgment, right? We all have some form of judgment through our own lives. Judgment is just evaluating people and their behaviors. We automatically think judgment has some form of negative connotation to it, but at the end of the day, judging is just the evaluation of people and what they are doing. Okay. It's the behaviors that grant them that negative connotation that go along with it. Okay. So, kind of going through some of these individual forms of judgment, we have two things that we build upon. We have impression formation and then making attributions. Your information is that judgment process of developing an initial concept of another person. Okay. So, these are the things that we see immediately at face value. We don't know much about who that person is, their past, their history, the things that they have gone through. But in turn, we can start to judge them based on what we see outright. Okay, so if I see someone on the street who is maybe doesn't have the shiniest car or the best clothes, kind of maybe has an unshaven beard or long hair, I might think that they are poor, right? My judgment from their initial concept of them would be that they might be disadvantaged, right? They might be poor in some way. I don't know that, right? That might just be their style. They may not be big on appearances or big on flaunting their wealth and status. But because I don't know that, I can only judge what I see because I don't know any other exterior information about that. Okay? That's all I can see. Once I find that initial concept of another person, we move on to attributions and making them. Now we're trying to find explanations of why they are behaving in certain ways. So, for example, if I'm going in, if, for example, if you're in class, right, or you're walking through the hall, or you're in the fraternity or sorority, and you see one of your sorority sisters, fraternity brothers kind of acting sad or pushing people around or bullying them, I can judge them based on what they're doing. Their outward reaction to it. My outward reaction to it might be, why are they doing this? Why are you being such an asshole? Right? But I'm trying to explain why you're acting this way. Okay? Could it be that something has happened in your personal life that is causing you to outwardly react in a hostile way? Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling agitated, right? All these different things. We're trying to explain outward behavior. Okay. Once we go past attributions, we have three unique things that stem from this: situational attribution, dispositional attribution, and then fundamental attribution error. Situation attribution, these are explanations that put the cause of behavior outside their control. So, for example, if this person is acting hostile, if they are acting kind of confrontational, maybe that someone in their life had passed away, or something that they really cared about has left or has been lost or something like that, and they're trying to find ways to cope with it. Okay, maybe they just cannot control their behavior and their outward reaction at this point because it was such a traumatic or a life-altering scenario. Okay, that'll be your situational attributional. Your dispositional is the inverse of this. It's the behavior from their own control. Okay. So maybe they're acting this way simply because they have maybe issues with power, they have issues with authority, and they want to exert that themselves. They want to gain some of that control. Okay. And because of that, they're going to demean, they're going to hurt others in order to feel some form of superiority. Okay. And then finally, your fundamental attribution. This is the tendency to believe that others' negative behaviors are resulting from their choices. Okay, so for example, when we hear people cough, especially from the pandemic that we had with COVID-19, right? When we hear people cough, we automatically kind of recoil, right? We're a little timid. We don't really want to approach them, okay? But maybe think back before COVID. If someone is coughing and it doesn't really look like they're sick, we might think, oh, maybe they are a smoker. Okay, maybe um, if we look at their eyes, or we look at their hair, or we look at some of the parts of their body and they have like tattoos, right? Maybe that's the fact that, hey, what is happening to you right now? You did this to yourself in a way, right? Your choices have now affected your behaviors in a negative way. Okay. That is going to be your fundamental attribution error. So kind of going across that, we're going to try something different here and talk about just general stereotypes and what they are. Okay. So stereotyping is applying stereotypes to individual people, okay, to a particular individual, treating them as if they embody the characteristics of that stereotype, of the large group, right? So, for example, I hold a stereotype towards old people. We talked about this in class, right? Particularly in their driving ability. Okay. My stereotype is that I don't believe old people can drive and drive competently. All right. So, just because I had that one negative interaction with that old woman who hit me, 10 years ago, I automatically assume and stereotype other old people into that same category, that they cannot drive effectively, at least not as well as I can. Okay. So we all know what these stereotypes are. Specifically, when we look at cultural stereotypes, we look at individual stereotypes, racial stereotypes, all these things go into play, right? We are taking what we know from the large group and placing it upon that individual. Okay. All these go hand in hand, from judgment, impression, attributions, situational, dispositional, fundamental. All of these kind of go within the stereotyping branch. Okay, let's continue. So let's talk about social cognition in the self. Right now, we're going to kind of look intrinsically. We're going to look, with the last couple slides we've been talking about, when we look at other people, our reactions to other people and their behavior, specifically automatic, controlled, judgment, and then impression formation, right? Let's talk about ourselves here. We want to talk about the self and social cognition, specifically something called self-concept. This is a very large schema in memory. It's a collection of all the ideas that you have about yourself, your abilities, your personality, your traits, your roles, what you think about yourself. Okay, this is your self-concept, right? These are the things, everything about you, the things that make you tick, the things that you don't like, the things that you do like, all the things that make you unique, that separate yourselves from the other people in your lives or the other people around you as well. Okay, this is all your embodiment, right? This is the embodiment of everything. Your self schema narrows that down. Okay, these are the qualities of yourself that you see as most central in defining or understanding who you really are. Okay. So these are the things that you hold really dear to yourself, the things that make up who you are, who I am, right? For example, if we're talking about myself, what is most central in defining who I am? I feel like at the end of the day, I am an educator, right? And on top of an educator, I found myself to be very empathetic. I feel myself to be very emotional in a way. I want to help people. These are the things that make up who I am. They are central in defining myself. Okay? To give you an understanding, to give you a better idea. Think of it as a movie poster, or for example, a billboard that's on top of your head, right? Think of the billboards that you see for movies, all right? You can see who's the main star, what's the title, what could some of the other characters that are involved in that movie be from far away, right? So, for example, if I see a billboard kind of maybe 500 yards away. I can see who's the main actor. Oh, it's Matt Damon. Okay, so I know Matt Damon's going to be it. I also see Ana de Armas, right? I see her as well. So I know that those are the two actors that are going to be a part of it. I can also assume that that movie might have some tone knowing what I've known about Ana de Armas's movies and Matt Damon's movies, right? Those are the things that you can see from far away and what people want to see, right? I'm going because of this. But what we don't see in your movie poster on top of your head, right, are some of the fine print, right? The smaller things. Who is it directed by? Who are some of the cast members, the other cast members? Who are some of the people who worked on the film? Where could the setting be, right? Those are the smaller print that you need to be a lot closer in order to see. Okay. So if I don't know someone very, very well, they want to show this off, your self-concept, all the ideas that you have about yourself. These are the things that you're showing off to other people in order for them to like you, respect you, etc., etc., etc. In order for them to truly get close to somebody, this is what you need to activate, right? You need to find the self-schema. You need to find the things that are central in defining who you really are, right? And sometimes you have to dig. You got to dig a little below that, okay? So, some of the things that we branch off self-concept, something called possible, ideal, ought, feared, and relational. Your possible being a set of ideas of what you're capable of being. We all are capable and we have the potential to do just anything we want, right? We're born with the ability, we're luckily and fortunate enough to be in the United States, that we have the freedom to really dedicate our own lives to an individual cause, right? To what we want to do. We're not forced to do anything at the end of the day, right? We are capable of making our own choices. This is our potential, the things that we know we can be and we're capable of being. We have the capacity to do it. If I want to go out and get a PhD or a master's degree, you can do it, right? If I want to try and go out and make a lot of money, I can go get this job, right? I'm capable of these things. I just have to put myself to that work, right? Your ideal self-concept. These are the sets of ideas who you would like to be, but you recognize that it's not completely achievable. For example, when we talked about Chris Bumstead and that godly physique, right? Yeah, I would love to look like him, right? That would be a dream of mine, or my dream to be a world-class athlete, to be a phenomenal football player, right? That was a dream of mine. I would love to be that. That was a dream of mine. But is it possible now, now that I'm kind of getting older and my body doesn't isn't as capable as it used to be? Yeah, yeah, it's not. It's not really achievable anymore. I'd love to, but can't. That would be your idea of self-concept. It's not to say that you can give up on it. If you're dedicated, if you're committed, you can achieve it, but it's not going to be easy. Okay? Your odd self-concept. These are the collections of ideas that you think you should be. Okay? Maybe you're not there. Maybe you're and all through high school you were getting straight A's. Okay? You got straight A's. High school was a breeze for you. You got into college and realized, oh shit, I'm failing exams or I'm not showing up to class. And I thought I could just breeze by some of this coursework on my intellect alone. Can't really do that. You think you should be an all-star athlete or an all-star a straight A student, right? But you're not there yet. You think you should be, but you're not there yet. Okay? You need to work toward it. Okay? Your feared self-concept, these are the ideas who you don't want to be, the things that scare you, the things that maybe have defined other people that you don't want to define yourself. So you stay away, you try hardest to avoid that, right? I'll give you a personal example. Alcoholism runs in my family. My dad doesn't have it, my granddad doesn't have it, but my great grandfather on my dad's side has it. Alcoholism usually skips two generations, so it would fall onto me. when my dad told me that, I became really fearful of doing that. So I tried to stay as far away from alcohol as possible, or at least use it in moderation, until I realized who I am and my control around the substance itself. So now I'm cautious with it, but I'm still open to it. I know my own control. Okay, I can control myself around it. And then finally, relational self-concept. These are the sets of ideas that you have about yourself in particular relationships or sets of them. Okay. So, for example, if I'm going to be in a relationship with a significant other, I'm going to be the empathetic one. I'm going to be the one who listens. I'm going to be the one who acts like the dad in the group or the dad of the relationship, right? Kind of a person who is not exactly controlling, but caring and nurturing. Versus when I'm in a relationship with my friends, I'm the humor one. I'm not exactly the butt of the joke, but I'm the class clown. I'm the joker, right? I'm the one who wants to make people laugh and make people feel included. Okay. So these are the sets of ideas that you have about individual relationships themselves. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So impression management, right? We kind of talked about impression formation here, but how do we manage our own impressions, right? We attempt to just protect and display our own self-concept by influencing the perception that others have. Remember the kind of the faces, right? The positive face and how the faces are managed, right? Our identity performances, right? This is what we're talking about here. We want to protect who people see us as. Sometimes we go through life with a couple of different faces. Our faces with ourselves, our faces with others, and our faces with kind of the exterior, the outside world. Okay. So from here, we want to influence the perception that people have of us. When they see us immediately, what do they see? So here we can share positive information about ourselves, whether that be on social media or upon initial meeting. If you're on a first date with somebody, you're not going to go on and tell people your trauma. You're not going to tell people the bad things about you, the negative aspects. You're going to tell them the good things about you, the quality things, the things that make you attainable, things that make you a good match, a good commitment to the other person. Okay. You want to avoid certain conversations, specifically like what we talked about with trauma, right? You don't want to open that up for the world to see, right? Unless you really want to. But traditionally, we keep that to ourselves. We work through it ourselves. And then we wear certain clothes. We're trying to maintain a certain look, some form of a physical projection, okay? Whether that be your clothes, your hair, your makeup, your physique, right? All these different things are used in order to project that this person is sophisticated, they are classy, perhaps they are wealthy, and perhaps they are a lot more attractive. They are more attractive than the other people around them, which would set them apart, okay? That will be your all your impression management, the things that you can do to manage it, to make sure that you are going to be a step above. You are going to be as likable as you can be at that given time, okay? Okay. So this is the end of the chapter. How can we improve social cognition? First, I want you to question the accuracy of your perceptions. Chances are the first thing we're going to go is automatic cognition, right? It's going to be the first thing that comes to our head. We're relying on stereotypes, things that were taught to us, and things that we see in the field, right? Chances are they're not going to be accurate. They're quick, they're easy to access, but those stories that we create and those gaps that we fill in, chances are aren't going to be correct, okay? Next, we want to seek more information to verify our perceptions. We can't just go through life saying, okay, I know this about, or I know, maybe 50% of who this person is. That's all I need to know. The rest I can just fill in with false information, and I'm fine with that. No, we need to seek more information to verify, hey, are the things that I'm saying about this person or the things that I'm attributing to them, are they correct, right? I need to learn more to verify what I'm saying and how what my thoughts, what my opinions can affect their own behaviors. Okay, so we need more information for that. We want to realize that your perceptions of a person might need to be updated, right? People are not stagnant. They change. They have the capacity to change. Change is hard, right? Some of y'all, I know this, some of you may know this, right? Trying to change yourself is really difficult. So, one perception of someone from 10 years ago very well might not be the same as they are now. Okay. I have many instances of friends who were like this in one way and then this in another way. For example, there was a person that I knew in high school throughout a majority of my young life. He was considered my bully, if you will. He bullied me. In high school, we actually reconciled, right? He learned his lesson. We played sports on the same team and we became really, really good friends, right? So my perception of him from when I first met him was, an asshole, a bully, a person who is doing this just to, give me hell, right? Then as we kind of grew up, as we learned and changed with the times, we changed and got more understanding of each other. Now we kind of realize that our perceptions were false and we updated them. Okay. We monitor our messages. Okay. That means we can't attribute things willy-nilly to people, especially on social media or in person, right? That only reinforces kind of your looking glass self, and that also reinforces um, things that we believe, right? Things that we believe that can harm us, can harm our own thoughts, right? So we want to make sure that what we're saying are contained. Maybe only said if you truly believe or need verification. If you need clarity, you need closure. These are things you can ask, and chances are they might give you that information as well. Finally, we want to monitor our emotions so we control our responses. We've all heard the saying, sleep on it. We've all heard the saying, don't make a decision out of anger. We've also heard the saying, don't make a decision out of happiness, too, right? We need to be controlled and we got to be grounded in order for us to decide what is going to be the right way to approach our situation. Okay? So that's all chapter two. I really find this chapter to be really interesting. It's a great kind of blend of communication and also psychology as well. So one of my favorite chapters of this book. It's funny that two of my favorite chapters of this book are within the first four, and then there are a couple ones later on that I really like too. But these first chapters two and four of this first section are really some of my favorites. Okay, we're gonna separate participation because we kind of talked about this. All right, so let's flip over to chapter three. It's all about first impressions and initial attraction. So it builds upon some of the social cognition, right? We talked about attribution error and impression, managing impressions, and now we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Talking nonstop makes me thirsty. Okay, couple reminders, couple things I need y'all to know. Exam one is next Thursday. Exam one is next Thursday. Okay, no class. We don't have class that day. You're gonna have 75 minutes to complete 30 questions. Multiple choice, fill in the blank, short essays, all right? All the things that we've talked about through lecture are going to be on your exam. There's nothing that's going to freak you out, okay? So feel free to access your textbook, feel free to access your notes. Just FYI, the slides that I post for chapters will be taken down on the day of the exam. So make sure you use them wisely. You come to class, you pay attention, and then you're going to be able to use what I teach you in order to go into the exams very well prepared. Because if you don't, if you sleep through class, you're on your phone, you're on TikTok, you're on Twitter, all these different things, and then you're like, oh shit, I don't know what's going on, and then you get to the exam and say, oh, I don't have the access to the slides, you're SOL, right? Nothing I can help you with. So use them wisely, use them to prepare, to fill in any gaps that you had with your notes or during your note taking, and just know that when exam day comes, they will be taken down. Okay. Continue to brainstorm ideas for kindness chaos. It can creep up out of nowhere. We're going to be seeing this assignment in the middle of February. Okay. So make sure you stay on top of it. Brainstorm ideas, right? Some of those kindness ideas, some of those chaos ideas. Remember, you only have to choose one. All right. And then we'll do a participation. Sound good? Okay. Let's keep going. So, how and why do we form impressions? What is the first thing that we see, we value, that we size up when meeting someone new? And does the absence of that automatically give you a negative first impression? I would have used this time for y'all to talk amongst yourselves and see what you guys came up with. Now, chances are the first thing when you saw this question, you might have thought of attraction. And that's the truth, right? We're thinking of attraction here. Attraction is going to be the first thing that we notice when we look at someone else. And why is that the case? Because that's the only thing that we can see. I don't know your personality. I don't know the things that make you tick. I don't know, who you are as a person. What I can see are the things that make me that I find attractive, okay? Whether that be eyes, whether that be hair, whether that be body, right? These are the things that we are looking at. These are the things that we see immediately. And if that other person does not fit your criteria of attractiveness, chances are you're going to refrain from contact with them. And if that contact is forced, you may feel a little unease. You might feel awkward, okay? So we have three different impression levels that go along with this. We have your physical, your sociocultural, and your psychological. Okay, your physical level is that first impression that you get. It's what I can externally see. Your age, your gender, your height, your weight, and the subjective attractiveness level that we have. Okay, these are the things that are immediate, the things that we don't need context for. We can just see what we see, and then we make impressions from that. So if I see someone who might be, kind of small, I'm like, well, okay. If I'm into tall or I'm into short, height might be a big thing. Weight for the same thing as well. Attractiveness level on the same page. These are all subjective forms of attraction. Okay. So if you don't fit that criteria, chances are you're not going to be approached. Okay. So once you get, if this is deemed acceptable, if that physical impression falls under your criteria for attractiveness, then you move on to something called your socio-cultural level. This is when you begin to make judgments regarding their socioeconomic status. So, how much wealth do they have? Are they rich? Are they poor? Their cultural background. Where are they from? How did that define who they are? Their education. Okay. Your politics, your religious info. These are the things that are more, you're getting a little deeper into their actual person, into their self-concept, if you will, their self-schema, what is central to who they are, correct? So this is your social cultural level. You deemed this acceptable. Now you've deemed this acceptable, right? You're on the same page regarding these issues. Now you can go one more. You can go to your psychological level. These are your judgments regarding personal characteristics. How friendly, ill-tempered, selfish, caring. Okay? These are the things that we're trying to figure out. Now we cannot make these impressions until we get to know them on a very intimate level, right? On a very personal level. So without high levels of context, you cannot make these judgments. Okay? You can't. You don't know enough about them in order to do it, right? So once you deem that this is acceptable, and this is acceptable, then you can move to either kind of a relationship, whether that be platonic or romantic, and then go from there. Okay? So let's talk about physical attraction first, kind of the first level that we see. Attraction draws people to one another. It's like a magnet, right? Magnets are there to attract bits of metal, right? Kind of the same thing here. If you are attractive, eyes will be on you. Okay, you will be, people will want to gravitate towards you. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. There's three types of physical attraction. Your physical, which is purely how they look. Your social is how their personality is. Are they bubbly? Are they energetic? Are they fiery? Are they fun? Right? I want to be around someone who acts that way, who has that disposition, who makes me feel better when I'm around them. Okay? And then finally, your task. It's your desire to be around them to fulfill certain needs, fulfill certain tasks, particularly in like work settings. Okay? So these are your different types of attraction. Um, when we move on to something the stereotypes that we talked about in chapter two, we see this a lot with physical attractiveness, specifically in the media that we are watching. Okay, there's two different stereotypes to this. We have the what is beautiful is good and what the beautiful is conceited. Okay, so when we think of certain film, we think of certain media, TV shows, attractive people, what is beautiful is good. Basically attributes that attractive people have positive internal instincts. If someone is beautiful, they are kind, they are loving, they are generous, they are loyal, right? We often see them as that, but on the inverse, we see that what is beautiful is conceited. This is that attractive people are shallow and materialistic and vain. Perhaps they are a bit on the slow side. Perhaps they are narcissistic, negligent, all these different things, right? These have two different uses. When we see reality television, particularly like think of your Kardashians, think of your Love Islands, think of your Love is Blind, like all that, we often attribute those people with this, right? But then when we see perhaps celebrities or artists who behave in one certain way, who are behaving in a way that they are attractive, we think, and maybe we see a deed that they did on social media that was kind of very kind, and we automatically think, okay, maybe they're going to fit this criteria as well. Okay, let's move on to social attraction. What connects physical and social? Okay. Excuse me. So some of these different points here, right? Some of these different points. These are the things that basically if you adhere to, right? If you adhere to, you're going to be viewed more positively in terms of your social attraction. So people wanting to be around you, right? Conversational rule keeping, knowing, hey, I talk first, then you talk first. I talk first, you talk first, right? Often looking people in the eye, no interruptions, right? Self-concept confirmation. You're not going against who you are, right? To make a point or to be someone else, okay? You are acting who you are. You're staying true to yourself. Your disclosure elicitation. You're deciding whether or not you want to tell them some of your more intimate secrets or your more intimate things about you, but knowing when is the right time to do so, okay? Your nonverbal immediacy. This is finding ways to convey warmth, convey I am like you are important to me. I want to be around you. I want you to notice that I care for you in this way. Okay. So your nonverbal immediacy examples could be eye contact, could be getting up, sitting close. It could be standing up straight. It could be I said eye contact. It could be physical touch in some sort of way. Okay. Self-inclusion, right? You're deciding to put yourself into this certain area. If you're kind of a loner on the outskirts of the bar, people aren't going to talk to you. But if you insert yourself into conversations with friends, chances are they're going to be accepting of your presence. Okay. Active listening. We talked about this is turning on your brain as well as your ears, right? We all hear sound, but are we really contemplating sound? Are we really contemplating what the meaning is behind these messages, okay? The enjoyment facilitation. This is going into situations having some form of a good attitude, right? Not going into it as a Debbie Downer or a stick in the mud, right? You want to enjoy your presence around other people. Openness, right? You're on a closed off book. You're open to telling people who you are and what is your reaction to certain things. And finally, altruism. This is benevolence, right? This is being selfless, being caring towards other people, right? You're wanting to be very generous as well. Okay. So, what I want you to know about this is something called interaction appearance theory. What this basically says is that engaging in positive communication with someone, so these are going to be your positive forms of social communication, your positive forms. If you hold many of these to yourself and then you display them in social settings, people are going to be, it's going to increase perceptions of physical attractiveness. Okay. Whereas engaging in negative, so going against these, is going to decrease it, right? So if you do these, eye contact, rule keeping, active listening, understanding, altruism, right? All these things, people are going to see you in a better physical light, okay? On the other side, if you don't, they're gonna be like, oh, I can't see myself with them. They're not that person for me. Okay. So when it comes to long-term attraction, long term. So if you had a friend for a while, maybe you've always had these feelings for her, but she not for you, or vice versa, right? If you keep these, true to your heart and you continue to do so, chances are that she would or he would constantly would begin to look at you in a better physical light. Okay? So communication always trumps appearance is what I want you all to know. All right, let's talk about a little about theories. And I told you all last class or a couple classes ago that we're not going to go in depth with these theories. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what they are, but we're not going to go deep depth on who created them and what some of their main purposes are. The first thing I want you all to know is something called predicted outcome value theory. This is essentially our do the benefits of relationships outweigh costs? AKA, do my green flags outweigh my red flags, right? We all have these different things that we look for in relationships. Green flags, are they caring? Are they smart? Are they selfless? Or do they know how to cook? All these different things, right? Your red flags, are they narcissistic? Are they selfish? Are they rude? All these different things, okay? So chances are we're trying to see, do the benefits outweigh the costs? What could potential costs of a relationship be? Time, effort, money, right? Those are some costs that can exist out of inherent relationships, whether that be platonic or whether that be romantic. Your green flags are kind, loyalty, time together, caring, a companion, right? All these different things. So if you determine that those green flags, those good attributes are going to be better than the loss of money and the loss of time and the loss of energy, then boom, you've made it clear that this is a relationship that you value. Okay? Next, something called your matching hypothesis, right? This is of the gravitation of us, of people who are on similar attractiveness scales, right? So, for example, if you think of the hottest person you know, the most attractive person that you know, for example, I'm gonna say like, who could I come up with? Like Madison Beer, for example. I don't know. Eh, she is like up here. I'm like down here, right? So I'm not gonna go try that because I'm having to climb a really, really steep mountain, right? I'm not gonna gravitate towards her because I know I would never have a chance, right? But I would have a chance at someone who's on the similar level. They would too. If that is deemed that we are on the same page, we are going to find ways to interact with one another without feeling intimidated or having to put on an act. Okay? This is your matching. Okay? You want to be around people who look like you, who act like you, behave like you, who are from where you are from, right? Similarities is what also increases attractiveness as well, which goes under your matching. Okay? And then finally, something called uncertainty reduction theory. This is the biggest one. This is the biggest one I want you to know. Excuse me. This is how uncertainty affects our ability to communicate in social situations. And then how can we reduce uncertainty? We're all uncertain all the time, right? I'm uncertain about what the rest of this day will bring. You are uncertain about the rest of this day. I'm uncertain if we'll have class tomorrow. So are you, right? We all have uncertainty at all different forms of all different walks of life, at all different stages of our lives. We have to find ways to mitigate that, to reduce it, find ways in order to reduce uncertainty also often goes along with anxiety. We don't like to be anxious. So we have to take that down in order to be more certain. We have to be kind of sure that we're on the right page. Okay. We'll talk about that in more detail here. How do we mitigate this? We have three different ways of reduction. Okay. Three different tips of how to reduce it. Your first one is something called passive reduction. This is your gathering of information about someone without being obtrusive, without basically meaning without interfering with themselves, right? You're not going to them yet. So you're checking your socials, seeing what they post, they like, they share. Perhaps you're checking your LinkedIn to see what job they have. You're looking at them from afar. So it kind of seems like stalking in a way, if you want to attribute that to that. But it's you're trying to gain some more information. Okay. So for example, this is the example I like to teach my classes with this. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Okay. So think of it as like a date. For example, may say you match with somebody on Tinder or Hinge or Bumble or whatever all the shit dating apps are. Say you match with one of them. You don't know squat about them, right? Only besides the things that you put on your profile. Those are the things that they want you to see, but you don't really know anything else besides that. So maybe you talk for a while, you're not really going anywhere, but you do set up a date, right? What are some of the talking points that I'm going to say on my date? I don't know. I don't really know squat about them. This would be a great way to get started. Okay. Maybe you have access to their last name. Maybe you know where they work. Maybe you can check a website. You can check their Instagram, their TikTok, and find, okay, they went here or they did this or they like this and so on and so forth. Now I can talk about this at our first date. Okay. But maybe you need a little bit more. We go to something called active reduction. This is the gathering information about someone through interacting with others who can provide additional info um, as well as seeing how what they might react to you or certain situations that you bring up. Okay, so this is like asking your friends or close acquaintances. So your first date, the day that you match with on Hinge, right? Let's say that, oh, by a stroke of luck, you have mutual friends with this person. Sweet. They are actually closer to her than you are to them. So let me go to her, let me go to this friend, this mutual friend, and ask, what is she like? What does she enjoy? What does she not enjoy? What is some of her main points about herself? All right. Or what did she go on vacation? Or what does she like to do for fun? And then we can talk about that. I can bring those in conversation. And then we can have a really good talk about it. Okay. So that's going to be your active reduction. And then finally, your interactive reduction. This is your first state officially, right? You're gathering information through direct contact with the other person. So meeting, grabbing drinks, asking questions that can cause plethoras of reactions. So a lot of different ones. Okay. I like to think of it as this. Alongside my date analogy, I want you to think of it like a fire, like a campfire. Okay. If you're pretty far from the fire, you don't really get to feel its warmth, right? You can see it. You can see the flames, right? And you know that there is warmth there, but you can't really feel it, right? Your active reduction, you're taking a couple more steps in. You're getting a little warmer, right? You can begin to feel it, but it's not overwhelming yet. You're interactive, you are right next to the fire. You're kind of getting blind by it, you're getting really hot, right? You're getting everything, you're getting all the sensory information regarding that person, regarding that fire, because of how close you are to them now. Okay. So that's going to be your uncertainty reduction theory. Really one of the most important ones of this whole chapter. Okay. Okay. SIBO. So, predicted outcome value theory. Talked a little bit about this. Do the green flags outweigh the red flags? Your two fundamental assumptions. People are motivated to maximize rewards, minimize costs, right? We want to get the most out of something or someone without putting in as much work. Okay? I want to get I want to get these things, this thing. I want to get like five things with exerting one thing, energy. Okay? I'm trying to get the most that I can without it. You're squeezing the last bit of toothpaste out of the tube before you have to go buy a new one, right? To the point where you are like scrunching it up or you're twisting it. You're trying to get that last bit. Okay. And then the next one, people make judgments about future outcomes to guide their current behavior. Okay. We all think about this. Say you meet someone, you've got a friend, so on and so forth. You're beginning to imagine maybe dates, events, things that you could go to, right? You're trying to gauge the future. You're trying to assume the future. But in order for you to do that, you have to get an understanding about who they are, what they like, what they don't like, things that would make them tick, things that would make that they would enjoy at the end of the day. Okay? So that's your predicted outcome value theory. Okay. This is the most important, one of the most important things of this chapter, something called primacy and recency effects. Your primacy is when people continue to believe that first impression they had of you, even when and after prolonged exposure and a different information and context. This is usually if the thin slice was an expected behavior. What you need to know about your thin slice impression, this is your 5 to 10 minutes upon initial interaction. So this is what we're gauging physical attractiveness in that thin slice and the behaviors that they exude. Okay. So if that thin slice, that 5 to 10 minutes was an unexpected behavior, we all go into certain sets of interactions with a set of ideas about what can happen. If what they do interferes with that, we now think, oh, okay, so that's new. It might catch us off guard, but now we're going to be a little bit more alert. We're going to be a little bit more on guard. So if the first time you met somebody, they fell and tripped down the stairs, right? Really embarrassing. Okay. You continue to be friends with them, but even to this day, you think of them as the clumsy one. You think of them as maybe the slower one, right? This is your primacy effect because them falling was a very unexpected thin slice impression. Okay. So if the thin slice has a lot more, if it is truly unexpected, you never thought that would happen, chances are you're going to be looking at them in that light for a majority of the rest of your relationship. Okay. Your recency effect. This is our tendency for our most recent interactions to strongly impact our feelings towards them. Okay. So the things that have just happened a day ago, an hour ago, a minute ago, okay, those interactions are going to be the ones that we constantly think of when we refer to them. Okay. So not to say that your primacy effect with this relationship has no meaning, but we understand that the things that have just happened, the evolving door of the recency effect is going to be more important. Okay. So say you became friends with someone without knowing their politics. You find out their ideology is different from yours. What might happen? Okay. So maybe we really like each other. We're having a good time. We're good friends. Our politics are different. We get into an argument about it. Does this recency effect and our difference in politics affect our relationship? Okay. So again, chapter 3 was fairly short, nothing too crazy with it. Key takeaways, people have basic needs to form impressions of others quickly, right? We want to think of physical thing first. Physical interaction are the first thing that we notice, okay? Impressions vary in accuracy. Okay, remember we have subjective views of physical attractiveness, social attractiveness, sociocultural, all those different levels, okay? We have different subjective views of them. So those impressions are going to vary tremendously. Okay? Our initial impressions are influenced by physical appearance first and foremost. Okay. But know that communication can modify or override those. Okay. Remember, we talked about that. We talked about your interaction appearance theory, engaging in that positive communication. These things. Okay. Those are going to be looked at more favorably in terms of a long-term physical attraction than it would than it would be doing the inverse of it. Okay. Affinity seeking strategies. That is what these are. Okay, these are affinity, AFFINTY, affinity strategies, right? The longer that you do those, and with more action, right? The more you really hold them to your heart, they are going to promote social attraction. Okay, you do these. people are going to like to be around you. And then finally, your displays of knowledge and confidence promote your task attraction. Okay. You know what you're talking about. People want to be around someone who they know what they're talking about, especially if you're in a work setting, a school setting, you want to be partners with them for a project, right? You display that, people are going to be very, around you, want to be around you for this task coming up. Okay. So that was all chapter three. Again, chapter three is arguably the shortest, one of the shortest chapters of this book because it has a lot to do with chapter two. Um, but I also think it's very important for us to know to begin with. Okay, so I told you at the beginning of this lecture that I would be doing a participation activity for y'all on a Google form. I'm going to introduce it here for you, but I'm also going to be reiterating it on the Google form when I send it out. Okay, so this participation activity, I want you to believe that this is election season. Okay. This is election season. It's time to vote on some candidates. Okay. Here are three different candidates that I want y'all to know. Your candidate one associates with gypsies, consults with astrologists, is a known adulterer, he chain smokes, and drinks 8 to 10 martinis a day. My kind of guy. Okay. Candidate two, kicked out of office twice, sleeps until noon, used opium in college, and drinks a quart of brandy every morning. Also seems to my kind of guy. And then candidate three, a decorated war hero. Vegetarian, doesn't smoke, drinks occasionally, has no love affair. So a very kind of grounded candidate. Seems to be, of the three, the realist, right? The one who wants to, it seems to be the best fit. Okay. So I want you to look at these candidates, and in the Google form, I want you to respond to who would you vote for and why. Okay. All right. So I hope to see everyone on Thursday. Hopefully, I mean, I don't really know at this point. It's just, I don't even think the roads aren't even a problem much anymore. It's just how bitterly cold it is. Um, we'll see what happens. Keep following, keep looking for UK stuff. If we have another change, if UK cancels on Thursday, I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be recording lecture for chapter four. I don't want to because I love chapter four, but if it comes to that, we will be doing that. Okay. All right. Hope to see you on Thursday. Cats play tonight against Vandy at 9 o'clock. Should be a good game. Vandy's ranked, but they've had some struggles the last couple games. Hopefully we get that one, move on to five in a row. That'd be kind of crazy. I never would have thought that with the run that we had to begin the year. Okay. All right. I will hopefully see y'all on Thursday. All right. Later, y'all.